call this meeting to order. Mr. Thornberry, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Berry.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dalton.
Here.
Commissioner Jeanot.
Here.
Commissioner LeCompte.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips.
Present.
All right. Today for our invocation, I'd like to welcome Pastor Eddie Ellison. Pastor Ellison, you with us? Thank you. Of Middle Cross Baptist Church. Everyone who wishes to participate, feel free to bow your heads.
Let's pray together. Father, we come before you on your invitation and on the merit of Christ to bring our petitions before you. Lord, we're mindful of the first responders of this city, of the police and the fire. Father, we ask that you would keep them safe as they go about the discharge of their duties, Lord, that you would keep your hand of protection upon them. Lord, for this assembly here today, you've told us to pray for those who are in leadership, that they would lead quiet and peaceable lives with all godliness and dignity. So we pray for these men and ladies, Lord, that you would help them to lead lives of integrity, whether in the privacy of their home or in the public square, that they would lead in righteousness and justice, seeking the highest and the common good for the community that they serve, until the Prince of Peace, Jesus, returns and rules and reigns in perfect righteousness. For it's in his name we pray. Amen.
All right. Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Thornberry, will you please lead us?
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Ellison, do you have any announcements for your church you'd like to share?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So first we have the consideration of the minutes for approval or correction. Bear with us as we've had several special called meetings, so we have some additional minutes to approve, more so than we normally would. So first up we have the May 4th agenda work session. Does anyone have any corrections?
I did want to mention, I don't see the April 26th minutes on here.
That is later on our agenda. That meeting alone will
Okay.
fall under the section that Mr. Litchford will be assisting us
Okay,
with.
thank you.
Yes. So any corrections for the May 4th agenda work session? All right, if not, then can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. Motion
Okay.
to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner LeCompte. Do I have a second?
I will.
All right, a second from Commissioner Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the May 4th commission meeting minutes. Any corrections for the May 4th regular commission meeting? All right. I do have a... Oh, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the minutes on the May 4th.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Phillips. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Jeanot. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next we have the May 7th special called meeting. Does anyone have any corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make it approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Jeanot. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner LeCompte. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next we have the May 10th special called meeting minutes. Any corrections for May 10th? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I have a motion from Vice Mayor Dalton. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next we have the minutes from the May 11th budget hearing. Any corrections for that? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make it approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Jeanot. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner LeCompte. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, last minutes for this section, the May 11th special called meeting. Does anyone have any corrections for that? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make it approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Jeanot. Do I have a second? I'll second. haven't done any yet. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we made it through all of our minutes. Next up, I will give my mayor's report. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the dozens of citizens, as well as Channel 12, Channel 3, and the Times Free Press for joining us last Saturday, May 8th in White Oak Park for the grand opening of the Tri-State Bluebird Society largest bluebird trail to date. Volunteers successfully installed 12 bluebird boxes on May 7th, and I'm happy to report that at least one of them already has a bluebird nest with eggs in it within a week of installation. So it seems that the bluebird housing market is just as hot as the human housing market in Red Bank. Thank you very much to Miss Bridget Raper of the Small Cities Coalition for helping us get the word out about this event, as well as for joining us during our work session to give a briefing to the board on the outcomes of the recent State of Tennessee legislative session. Just a reminder to everyone present, there will be a special budget hearing tomorrow, May 19th at 4:15 p.m. That's open to the public. And during that meeting, we'll be covering the Public Works and the Administration departments. The budget should have its first reading at our next regularly scheduled commission meeting, June 1st at 6 p.m., with a second and final reading planned during our June 15th meeting. The budget must be approved by June 30th. The next Red Bank Community Drive-Through Food Pantry will be Thursday, May 20th from 5 to 6 p.m. I've also been informed by our city manager that the Red Bank Pool will be opening again on Memorial Day weekend. I received notice that the Southeast Tennessee Area Agency on Aging and Disability is searching for more volunteers for their My Ride program that assists community seniors with rides to essential appointments. If you're interested in volunteering, their next training session is tomorrow. You can call at 423-424-4201 or email myRide@sedev.org. Now, I normally try to keep my mayor's report purely positive, like the above comments, but solely for the purpose of correcting on the public record, I feel compelled to address just a few glaring inaccuracies entered into the public record during the May 4th meeting. I indeed did call the National Park Service and spoke to a representative there in October of 2020, before the election, attempting to educate myself on the history and some of the most pressing issues facing the city I love. I have not called NPS since, but I would happily do so if the good of the city demanded it. I have indeed met with another city manager in October 2020, also before the election. Stephanie Dalton and I met with Chris Dorsey, city manager of Eastridge and former city manager of Red Bank, in order to gain a more thorough understanding of the history of the city. And I would happily reach out to Mr. Dorsey again in the future if the good of the city warranted it, just as Commissioner Janot did last week when she stated that she had reached out to Mr. Dorsey about our special counsel, Mr. Litchford. While I have not yet had the opportunity to meet any other city managers, I did have lunch with Collegedale's economic planner in November 2020 before being sworn into office. Commissioners-elect Phillips and Dalton and Commissioner LeCompte joined me for that meeting, where we simply learned about the job position of economic developer and what that looks like for a city of our region with a similar population. I also met directly with one city employee, Greg Tate, Superintendent of Public Works, to check in with him about two different park projects that I had initiated, the Bluebird Project and Tennessee Tree Day, just to check in with him. And I did join Commissioner Phillips and Vice Mayor Dalton for several days in March, touring each department of the city, including Public Works, both fire stations and the police station, and met all the city staff that I could. Our goal as brand new first-time commissioners was just to introduce ourselves to all employees, put faces to names, see all the facilities and equipment firsthand in advance of budget season so we could educate ourselves on the priorities and needs of those employees on the ground. At no time were any promises made of any kind. That is all I will bother those present with today, and I'll move on to Vice Mayor Dalton's report.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We've got many important discussions happening tonight, so I'm glad to see so many citizens engaged. I'd love to see you all continue to attend our meetings in the future, even when it comes to the more nitty-gritty but important topics of discussion like budget hearings and amendments, new and revised ordinances, zoning requests, and approval of data studies. I will say these discussions can be tedious at times, but they are necessary to keep our city growing forward, and I would love nothing more than to have our citizens involved in those conversations. Some local highlights, I'd like to let everyone know about a really exciting event coming up at Red Bank's White Oak Park this Saturday, May 22nd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There will be a free family photo event. Reserved spots are all booked up, but some walk-ups may be available with a wait. After the event, you'll be mailed a free print along with access to an online gallery. There will be bike giveaways too, first come, first served. I just want to express tremendous thanks to the Trust for Public Land and Family Voices of Tennessee, as well as Red Bank's own Be Caffeinated, Brooke Bragger Photography, Friends of Red Bank Parks, and White Oak Bicycle Co-op for making this event possible. We are so lucky to have such wonderful citizens and friends creating partnerships for the betterment of the Red Bank community. And in case you haven't heard of White Oak Bicycle Co-op, they are a volunteer-run 501c3 nonprofit community bicycle organization located here in Red Bank. Their mission is to provide refurbished bicycles and bicycle repair services to the community, focusing on children, low-income households, and individuals experiencing homelessness. How fortunate we are to have such amazing, kind, compassionate, and generous neighbors whose spirits are dedicated to serving their community and those in need. I'm constantly in awe of the people that make up our community. And on the following weekend, on May 29th, from 12 to 6 p.m., local business L&E Wholesale at 4825 Dayton Boulevard, Suite C, will be holding their third last Saturday market. They will have local vendors, makers, and artists, and Red Bank's own Politas food truck, as well as a clothing swap. You can bring 3 items of clothing and swap them for 3 others. Any items left over at the end of the day will be donated. Some updates from our local schools. Alpine Crest is excited to announce, and me too because my son goes to school there, that Mrs. Ashley Cross will officially be the new principal of Alpine Crest Elementary School next year. Alpine Crest is also excited to announce that they will be designated as an ESOL site, English for Speakers of Other Languages, next year, thus expanding their student body and serving the needs of their diverse population of learners. They will be holding promotion ceremonies to honor 5th graders on May 26th at 9 a.m. and kindergartners at 11 a.m. Red Bank Elementary will be honoring their 5th graders in a drive-through promotion ceremony on May 25th at 5 p.m. Red Bank Middle School will be honoring their 8th graders in a promotion ceremony on May 26th at 9 a.m. at the Red Bank High School Stadium. Red Bank High School is having their 81st graduation ceremony tonight as we speak at Finley Stadium. Here are some statistics about their graduating class and the amount of scholarship money they were awarded. $494,949 through Tennessee Promise eligibility, $333,250 through Tennessee Hope Money, $93,554 through private scholarships, and $339,951 in institutional scholarships for a total of $1,261,704. From Principal Evans at Rivermont Elementary, we are finishing strong here at Rivermont. We wrapped up TCAP testing last week, and we will spend the next week and a half getting ready for the next year. We have lots of fun things planned: field day, a virtual talent show, kindergarten recognition, 5th grade promotion, and a retirement celebration for our longtime music teacher, Phyllis Finney. We are also having events to welcome our new open enrollment families for Rivermont. It is going to be a busy 2 weeks, but we are going to continue to celebrate and grow as readers, writers, and thinkers at Rivermont. From our schools, this was relayed to me several times in my communications with them, teachers, staff, and myself on behalf of the Red Bank Board of Commissioners. I just want to say how proud we all are of our students and all they've been able to accomplish this year. Special recognition to all of our graduates who had to be especially creative and adaptive with completing their final grade school years in the middle of a global pandemic. This school year has been wrought with challenges and uncertainty, but through all of the adversity our students have faced this year with such fortitude and resilience. Here's hoping hoping for a safer, smoother, and all-around sillier school year for 2021-2022. And finally, I am aware that Mayor Berry just made some corrections to the public record. I also felt compelled to do so. I have arrived at that time in my report where I will be clarifying and correcting statements that were made on the public record. I must say that I am deeply bothered by the fact that I have to waste the public's and commission's time making corrections on the public record. However, as an elected official committed to transparency, I feel this must be done. I'll start by saying that I have made it my priority to serve my community and my fellow commissioners with kindness, respect, courtesy, and integrity. As I stated at our on the record at our March 2nd commission meeting, let's work together to move our city forward with humble voices and hearts that lead with integrity, kindness, and courage. Change can be disconcerting, but it is constant and inevitable. As our world evolves around us, we will most certainly find that we won't agree on everything, especially if we are successfully including diverse perspectives. But we can disagree agreeably and with grace. And yet, at our last meeting on May 4th, a fellow commissioner used a report to make statements on the public record that mischaracterized and falsified information about both myself and Mayor Berry. This is time that could be much better spent devoted to our city and to our citizens. However, my hand has been forced, and now out of a duty to ethics, morals, and integrity, I am compelled to clarify and correct the public record. First is the statement that I have met with area city managers. There is, in fact, only one other city manager I've ever met, aside from Mr. Thornberry. His name is Chris Dorsey. And not only is he the current city manager of Eastridge, he's the former city manager of Red Bank before he was terminated by a majority vote of the board at that time. I did indeed meet with him alongside Holly Berry to ask general governmental questions, ask about Red Bank history from his time as city manager, which ended in 2011 upon his termination, and inquire into the old Red Bank Middle School and Morrison Springs Park land swap and conversion agreement that was spearheaded by him during his time as city manager. This meeting occurred in October 2020, before I was elected as a Red Bank commissioner. I actually met with Mr. Dorsey that one and only time because I found out that one of my close friends had a long-standing family relationship with his family and encouraged me to reach out to him to ask any questions I might have about government and Red Bank in general. Mr. Dorsey provided a lot of helpful information, as I expect he did for Commissioner Janelle last week when she called him to ask his opinion of his own city's attorney. Second is the statement that I met with planning staff of other cities. There is, in fact, only one planner from another city I have attended a meeting with. I met with the Director of Planning and Economic Development Coordinator from Collegedale to get information on things like what his position entailed, how he helped economic development in his city, and what a staffed position like his might cost. This meeting occurred in November 2020, before we received the certified results of the last election, and before I was sworn in as an elected official in December. I attended this informational meeting alongside Holly Berry, Pete Phillips, and Ed LeCompte. Third is the statement that I met with other city attorneys. I have never met with any municipal attorneys other than Mr. Stoltz, until I met Mr. Harry Cash virtually at our April 26th special called meeting, and Mr. Mark Litchford at our May 10th special called meeting. Fourth is the statement that I did not come to Tim for his advice or to ask what's going on in our city. I have, in fact, emailed and asked our current city manager a multitude of questions over the past 6 months regarding things like governmental procedure, projects, contracts, board appointments, services, and updates. Regardless, I will always be open to considering other individuals or other cities' experiences and how those experiences could bring value to efforts we are making here in Red Bank to grow our city forward. Fifth is the statement that I had gone above and around, meeting with and consulting with developers who submitted proposals for the middle school property. I did not meet with any of the developers who submitted proposals for the middle school property. I did receive one phone call prior to the submission deadline from one of the partners involved in one of the proposals who wanted to ask questions about what citizens wanted in that space. I answered his questions with the information I had heard from the hundreds of citizens I talked to during my campaign and since my election. Sixth is the statement that I called the National Park Service. I did not, nor have I ever called the National Park Service. I did request records through the Tennessee Open Records Act pertaining to the 2011 Red Bank Land Swap Conversion Agreement from TDEC, also in October 2020, before I was elected. Seventh is the statement that I went around promising pay raises to our city employees. Although this is false, there are a number of city employees I do think are deserving of raises. However, I am fully aware that I am but one elected official with one vote. In several meetings from March 8th through the 10th, Mayor Berry, Commissioner Phillips, and myself met with each of Red Bank City departments, which was discussed prior with City Manager Thornberry, who stated it was fine to meet with them. As I stated in my March 16th, 2021 Vice Mayor's report, we had a wonderful time meeting all of our city employees, getting to introduce ourselves, giving them an opportunity to ask questions, and allowing us to visit their work. Immediately following those meetings on March 10th, the board received an email from City Manager Thornberry stating, "Since I have been left out of the loop of the discussions that have been occurring, I need to know in which direction each of you are headed. I am requesting a separate email from each of you with what you have heard from the department heads and that you would like me to consider." In response, Commissioner Jeannot emailed back, "Tim and Commissioners, I strongly suggest we maintain the policy of having our department heads submit their budgets with their needs and wish lists. Our responsibility as commissioners is to work through and finalize the budget presented to us by the city manager. The interference in day-to-day operations has got to stop." To which Commissioner Phillips responded by stating, "Ruth, I believe that meeting with the city employees was extremely enlightening. Many long-term employees, good morale, a few wishes, some great ideas, excitement in their jobs. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We have great services in this town and I was looking for a more long-term budget. We also explained that Tim is the head of the city and we just wanted input. There are a few wants and needs that they brought to our attention and that I believe we can talk to Tim about to see if it is feasible. If not now, maybe in the future in increments." And so, not only were no promises of pay increases made, but it was made perfectly clear that any budget requests were required to go up to Mr. Thornberry through their respective department heads. Finally, on May 11th, 2021, Commissioner Jeannot interrupted a citizen during their 3-minute comment period to accuse me of calling her and Commissioner LeCompte old at the April 20th, 2021 work session meeting. For the record, the exchange to which Commissioner Jeannot was referring is as follows. Commissioner Jeannot stated, I think we all made a big mistake with this last election. We should have had a meeting with MTAS and let's define everybody's job descriptions. I think that's a big mistake on our part." I replied, "I've been asking for actually a refresher training from MTAS to coordinate with Tim since the election and that hasn't happened yet. I don't know why, if the scheduling hasn't worked out, but that is something I agree that would be helpful to have the parameters clarified for, what this person does, what that person does, and how our body, our legislative body, works with the city." Commissioner Jeannot asked, "Did you guys not go through the training?" I replied, "We did." Commissioner Jeannot asked, "Did you not get all that there?" To which I replied, "We got a lot of information, but I believe that a lot of people here could use refresher training on certain things, and so I thought it could be good for all of us as a new board, as 3 new members coming in with 2 old members, that it would have been helpful to us all to be on the same page. This appears to be a simple misunderstanding of opposites, new, old versus young, old. Hopefully this provides sufficient clarity. And so, now that the public record has been clarified and corrected, I gladly return my focus to city business, the interests of my neighbors, and the betterment of my community. Not only do I remain committed to the oath I made to serve my city dutifully and faithfully, I remain committed to the city of Red Bank's core values of trust, integrity, quality, teamwork, accountability, openness, innovation, diversity, community, and vitality. And always at the forefront of my mind in every decision I make is the City of Red Bank's mission statement, which is to protect, preserve, and enhance the quality of life for our citizens by providing efficient and effective municipal services and ethical leadership reflecting the pride and values of Red Bank. Thank you.
All right. Next we have the Commissioner's report from Commissioner Jeannot. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Tonight I'd like to welcome everybody. Everybody in this room knows me, knows I love the city, and I have worked really hard for the city. I've never done anything to harm the city. I'm going to leave that there. My commission report is, first of all, I'd like to give my condolences to Joan Carter, wife of our state representative, Mike Carter. Mike was a friend. He's a great servant for Hamilton County. He was not our representative, but he was our neighboring representative, and Mike will be sorely missed by all of Hamilton County. He worked well with the other state representatives, and he was a fine man, and he will be missed. Second, I'd like to congratulate Eddie Isles and Josh Hamill of our Red Bank Fire Department. On May 12th, they received the Star of Life Award in Nashville. On February 25th, 2020, they went to a scene where a motorcycle had wrecked, and it was a serious accident, life-threatening accident. And the young man was Travis Ramsey. Josh and Eddie were assisted by Ian Morrow and Bob Bedell of the police department. Those guys are just phenomenal, and if they had not had the training that they had, they would have lost Travis. Second, we missed Firefighters Day was May 4th. National Police Week was May 11th through 17th. National Law Enforcement Week was May 9th through 15th. And this week is National EMT Week. And I want to thank all those guys and their families for all the service they do for our city and our county. And last but not least, baseball's back in full swing at the Fairbanks Recreation Center. There is a tournament going on, and we're really glad to see that happening. And it's a great thing for our city to have our baseball back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Snow. Next, we have a report from Commissioner LaCombs.
I'd like to welcome everyone here. We have a lot of citizens, and we also have some past commissioners and our past mayor here. I'd like to welcome them, and also current planning commissioner, and also past planning commissioner. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, and finally, our report from Commissioner Phillips.
Morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming out here. Again, I'm not going to give a standard report. I brought this up in our work session. I thank you all for covering all of our events that's happening in this city. I'm astounded, you know. But I did visit the Tennessee or the Alabama Municipal League for my work, and we got to see all the little cool toys that they got for all of your taxpayer dollars, I guess. It was a really good show, though. But anyway, I brought this idea up in the work session. We don't have to agree on everything to work together for the betterment of our city. And I want to propose that we come up with, we talked about this in our work session, that we come up with a team approach for moving our city forward. We used this approach when I was in the North American Power Sweeping Association. It was a nonprofit, very, we had our committees, open meetings and all of that too, but you know, it was also not a government thing. But within 6 years, we went from an organization that held a party every year for our membership to achieving, we wrote a national standard that was ANSI certified. We got a certified sweeping company criteria and a review board with online training for all of the members involved, certified sweeper operators for the categories of parking lots, construction, and municipals. And these were 8-hour courses that were formed all online that we could run our employees through for a standardized training. And then the marketing for the awareness of those. We did all of this using volunteers. Now, how do we do that? So what we did is we created teams. We did a breakout session. We found out what was our top priorities as a group, as a membership. We focused those volunteers, and then we listed all of our priorities. We plotted a path, and we installed a team for each project. For us, I would see something for like transportation, parks and recreation, and business development. I'm not saying that's what we need to do. I'm just saying these are some ideas that are on my ideas. We would have to get up here together to find out what our priorities are. We have a set of preliminary goals for each team. We install a chairman, not a board member, a chairman of the committee, approved by the board. And then we put one member of each of the boards on our committees. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but 5 times 5 is 25 people working on some projects. All right? Plus the chairman. We meet weekly at the same time every week. This is a commitment, but it's the most important thing you can do to have effective results. And then we report with the progress of either our progress or what is stopping us to the board at every meeting. This is where our newly formed citizens advisory committees to establish teams. Teams are not committees. A committee is the closest thing to perpetual life there is. A team assembles for a task, and when that task is complete, the team either disbands or is reassigned to a new team. So for an example, the economic development team. First, who? We would need somebody from the chamber. We probably need the city manager, the building owners, who are the people that we're trying to get into their buildings and that's going to be affected by our development. The citizens, a developer, and of course the city staff. And then what? What kind of business mix? What kind of beer codes? What kind of recruitment do we need to recruit businesses in our area? Then report to the commission and to the other teams that are being involved. Then rewrite and then implement. That's when you write the ordinances. That's when we come up with the ideas, that we write the ordinances, and then we make a long-term visual plan for our city, something that we can really say, this is where we're going to be, okay? I've used this, and I wish I could say I come up with it, but I'm just not that smart. In fact, Giselle Chapman, she was one of the executives for Coca-Cola, General Motors, all of the Fortune 500 companies. She goes in and trains their executives. And we were lucky enough to nail her for one of our NAPSA things, and this is where we come up with this idea. All right. Team meetings will be open to the public. In fact, they'll be run by the public. There's only one of us. There's a bunch of you. Many hands make light work. We've done ours on Zoom meetings every week, so we can provide a link, adhere to the sunshine laws, and when we meet our work studies, our agenda is more set, and we know what's coming. And then also the people on the team are held to account. What are the teams we need to set up this vision? I think parks, recreation, business development, beautification, transportation, land use, codes and zoning, and of course, all of our current people, we need the planning commission involved. We just need to utilize better. All right, I truly believe that we're all in this. Every one of us up here is in it for the betterment of our city. And I think this will give us the focus to proceed and not just a hodgepodge approach as opposed to what's hot right now. And I know the last session I complained about what we were doing, and I just tried to use this as part of my solution. And I thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. And next up, we have our city manager's report.
Good evening, Commission. Good evening, citizens. Most everything that I had written down to talk about, y'all talked about as usual. So I know we've got a lot on the agenda, so that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Next up, we have a public hearing, rezoning request for 336 Sweetland Drive from R1 residential to R3 residential. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Charlotte Franklin?
Yes.
Please come forward. All right. Would you like to say a little bit about your request?
Yeah, I'm here to urge you to consider rezoning my neighborhood and property to legally allow for short-term rentals through Airbnb. I've owned my home for 4 years and am an upstanding resident and member of my community. My home is divided into an upstairs apartment and a downstairs apartment. I live on the upper floor. I try to rent out the bottom apartment for an affordable price to people who need affordable housing, but I have had consistent issues finding good tenants. It's been a real struggle, and unfortunately, I rely on the additional income from my property to cover my cost of living. I work a minimum wage, which is not a living wage for Red Bank. Having the ability to rent my property on Airbnb would offer me greater financial stability that I desperately need. Airbnb benefits homeowners and helps them build wealth. It supports surrounding businesses and brings tourism and tax dollars to local economies. Responsible homeowners should be offered more flexibility than we are currently to operate our properties. Please consider rezoning my neighborhood to bring more empowerment to more people for their financial well-being and collective economic health.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board for the applicant? Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in this public hearing regarding this rezoning? Okay.
So how much are you renting your apartment for, the downstairs apartment?
I've previously rented it $4,000, but right now, someone who's on the odds with their wife is renting for $800 because it's a personal friend.
What's the square footage of the downstairs apartment, do you know?
I believe it's 700.
700. Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay. Any discussion from the board?
What did the planning commission recommend on this one?
To deny. Like the planning commission stated concerns with spot zoning, as well as a concern that the lot size might be too small to accommodate for the screening requirements that would be required for an R3 zoning. This is something that I've been hoping to address in a different way than zoning through the planning commission. I've spoken to a lot of Red Bank citizens like yourself, especially people who are homeowners and primary occupants of their property would like to be able to rent out either a spare bedroom or garage apartment or an outbuilding or a basement apartment, and currently don't have the ability to do so outside of a rezoning request, and we are trying to avoid spot zoning. So it would be my goal personally to see another way to get the ability for you as a homeowner to do what you want with your own property, and to be able to convert some of that extra square footage that you have into income for yourself. But at the same time, personally, I really think we should avoid spot zoning, as it's been a really historical problem for the city in the past. But I think that there is solutions for how to handle short-term rentals other than zoning. Other cities have short-term rental policies that allow for applications for a short-term rental license in any zone, in any residential zone. Any further discussion from the board? Okay. If there are no more citizens present who wish to speak on this matter, then I will...
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I appreciate, my name's Carol Rose, 4717 Hunter Trail, and just wanted to say I also would be concerned about spot zoning, but as a longtime resident in an R1 neighborhood, I'm also concerned about having short-term rentals, possibly in my neighborhood. It's hard to know who's there in your neighborhood going down the streets. People have neighborhood watch, things trying to keep their families safe, and never knowing if someone's supposed to be on that street because they're an overnight renter would be a concern to me. Long-term renting, you can't do anything about. People own their homes. They're welcome to rent them out long-term. You get to know those renters. But overnight, as a citizen, I would not like to see that myself in my neighborhood. I would not like to see that changed.
Do you have any comments regarding 336 Sweetland Drive?
Sweetland Drive, I don't think that that area. It is R1 right now. I would hate to see it change to R3. And I think that's becoming more desirable. People are building around that area. So, yes, I would like to see it stay R1.
All right. Any other comments from any other citizens present regarding 336 Sweetland Drive? All right. If there are no further comments, then I will close the public hearing. And we will move on to unfinished business. First, we have agenda item 21-856 for deliberation and a vote. Employment contract for current city manager. All matters related to city manager Thornberry's email dated April 16, 2021, amending city manager employment agreement. And we are joined tonight by special counsel Mr. Lisford, as our city attorney Mr. Stolz has recused himself on this matter. Mr. Lisford, would you like to introduce the matter?
Mayor and Mayor Commission, thank you. We were here about a week ago, and in connection with that meeting, the directions that I received there was that the body wanted a little bit more time to look at this. I've received numerous emails, a lot of phone calls, and in consultation with the commission and members of the commission, as well as members of the administration and Mr. Elliott, we have identified, really, there's 4 options that can occur. We've got a current city manager right now. He's got a contract dated as of November 6, 2018. That contract has certain provisions built in there that induced Mr. Thornberry at the time to take the position, what he was currently at the time, serving in some dual position of public works and inspector, and to induce him, or as one of the things to induce him, he asked for protections on the back end under a liquidated damages provision identified for severance pay in the event certain conditions occurred. Where I've identified and working and reviewing the employment agreement, and then also trying to figure out what a resolution or what the options are for this body, the 4 really are: Mr. Thornberry resigns, Mr. Thornberry continues to work, Mr. Thornberry is terminated, or an arrangement is reached. And Mr. Thornberry has provided terms of which he is proposing to the city to work out a resolution. Currently, under his employment agreement as it provides right now, if he's terminated, he receives 12 months of pay. It would be in a lump sum amount, and I think the salary somewhere, give or take, average or aggregate around $110,000. He would receive that amount in a lump sum amount. If I understand Mr. Thornberry via Mr. Elliott, is that he has proposed a resolution where he would, his duties for the city manager would cease, as well as for public works, but he is proposing to provide services as a commercial building inspector, as well as provide other on-call services to the city manager. I've spoken with John Alexander, and from the understanding from John, that was, he has said, he would want Tim, he needs Tim. There's a lot of projects going on. I've received a number of information on the current projects that are working. So coupled with this information, we've worked to try to figure out an amendment to the employment agreement. And as I stated, there's 4 options here. If the prospects of an outright resignation or outright continuation is something that might not be plausible, then we look at the other 2. One is termination, the other is a resolution. And again, as I understand here, Mr. Thornberry is saying, instead of just paying outright 12 months, I am willing to only take 10 months. He'll get the allowance up through October 31st, as well as vacation and sick leave through October 31st. In our discussions from last week to now, that's a concession that Mr. Thornberry, via Mr. Elliott, notified me of, and so I have prepared for this body an amendment to the employment agreement. And I've given that to the commissioners as of yesterday, and what it provides for. And basically, he would serve as the commercial building inspector. He would provide the services that would be in the normal course of the business until there would be one that is either hired or is otherwise certified. I asked Mr. Thornberry, once one is certified, are you willing to continue to assist that person to get in the field training. And he has said, yeah, that's something I've already considered to be part of it. I would be helping this individual. As part of the assistance to the city manager, he would continue to provide assistance with respect to the 2021-22 budget that has to be finalized before June 30th of this year. He has stated he would provide the services related to the specific contracts, and we have specifically, for clarity, identified the contracts by project identification number so that there is no misunderstanding as to what projects he'd be working on. I am not aware of what these projects are, so I asked Mr. Alexander what these are. Mr. Alexander advised me that these are a conglomerate of pavings as well as bridge replacement, including sidewalks, one of which is a project that has existed for quite a long time, I understand, from Mr. Alexander. And so I went and I've included those specifically as an attachment to this agreement, which is different than what we saw last week. So therefore, we clarified that. I understand that there is the issue with the 2011 land swap. And so Mr. Thornberry, as part of this amendment to his contract, he would provide services as it relates to the non-compliance that the city has received notice from NPS and TDEC. And then, as another part, he has stated that he is willing to also, if there's things that he has knowledge and experience upon that would help in the transition with respect to a new city manager, he's willing to assist on those. And those items would be what he would provide as an on-call. I've asked Mr. Alexander what his expectation is for that to be, and Mr. Alexander's expectation is, with the identified projects in this amendment, he's going to still be working a significant amount. Part of the effort that we went then to try to achieve a resolution that would be in compliance. My marching duties when I was hired was figure out what can be done and can it be done legally. So I have taken those efforts to try to come up with a solution that is for the body to vote on tonight that would be in compliance, and that would be Mr. Thornberry has a current employment agreement. The city is entitled and has the authority to contract with the city manager. In this case, with respect to the current one of 2018, we would amend it to reflect what would occur if a resolution is reached here tonight. Mr. Thornberry would resign as the city manager, but in exchange for what he's entitled to under the severance of 12 months, he's going to get the 10 months plus the pay of the insurance. We've done the math. I worked with Commissioner Dalton. We looked at it. We're not economists. My background is math, but we figured out that there is a distinction somewhere around $2,100 to $2,300, give or take, is the overall number, but that does not include the time value of money, and it does not include the services that you're getting under the amendment, which I've just identified with respect to the commercial building inspector and the other items that are listed in the amendment. So that is what is presented here. These services would cease as of March 31, 2022. I don't have one of the commissioners asked what the basis for that was. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong. When Mr. Thornberry approached the commission back in middle of April, it was just sort of a clean break to the next calendar year through March 31st. Is that the basis of the March 31?
Yes.
Okay. So, but as one of the concessions that I received from Mr. Elliott, he's willing to concede to help this body. Mr. Elliott has repeatedly stated that Mr. Thornberry's interest is preserving the seamless transition of the city with respect to the projects that he's identified here, and if it helps this body be able to make a decision that they can be satisfied with, he would back away from a March 31st to an October 31st with respect to the automobile allowance or the vacation and sick leave. So tonight, like I said, you've got in front of you this amendment to the employment agreement, which is what this body has now got an opportunity to take up for consideration and approving.
All right. So now that we're all here together in person, does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Richard?
With respect to, I'm sorry. With respect to the email that we received at 4:17 PM today from you, Mr. Litchford, with an attachment of a position description that was approved by Mr. Thornberry yesterday, according to the date on it, 5/17. It says that he will be creating a, well, not says that, but this is a creation of a new position just for Mr. Thornberry, titled Commercial Building Inspector with other administrative duties. And the general purpose of this classification is on an on-call basis to perform work functions associated with commercial building inspections and other administrative duties assigned by the city manager on an on-call basis in relation to the approved employee agreement. I've had numerous conversations with you about this, Mr. Litchford, but not about this job description, because we just received it at 4:17. So this job description is the creation of a new position for Mr. Thornberry, but does not imply that it is a full-time position, because it specifically says on-call basis, perform the functions associated. And per our personnel policy, city employees are not entitled to accrued leave, retirement, or insurance benefits unless they are a full-time employee. And a full-time employee, per our personnel policy, is an employee working a minimum of 40 hours per week and hired under the personnel rules in a full-time budgeted position. Aside from the fact that this is not a budgeted position, it's a brand new position that's just been created as of yesterday. It has no specification as to it being full-time, and in fact seems to imply that it is not. As I said, as he would be reporting and performing his functions on an on-call basis. We also, just this evening when we arrived, had another job description included in our packets for a building property maintenance inspector. So a job description already exists for that position. It was created or approved on June 22nd, 2017. Under special requirements, it specifically says that an employee in this position shall devote full time to the duties of his office and shall maintain normal office hours between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, with some occasional varying hours. None of these terms are included in the creation of this new job description that was provided to us at 4:17 p.m. today, and therefore, based on the information that I just relayed, does not qualify as a full-time position, in my understanding of how our personnel policy declares that to be. And this, as Mr. Litchford said, one of the primary concerns with us formulating this agreement is to make sure, his amendment to the agreement, is that it complies with our personnel policy and our charter. So I feel like it would make the most sense, since Mr. Thornberry has been serving in the role of Director of Public Works, and for several years now, successfully by all counts, and because these projects that require, knowledge and expertise are projects he, as a Director of Public Works, would be assisting with, it makes sense to me that he would just step back into that role, that full-time role, for the next 10 months. unless he decided to terminate or retire, terminate this agreement himself or retire. And I would even be, I would be amenable to him continuing at the salary that he is currently receiving as city manager. But he can't, according to the personnel policy, be entitled to, again, the insurance, the retirement, and the accrued leave benefits unless he is a full-time employee.
Well, I do hate reinventing the wheel. And it is still my opinion, as I have stated since the beginning, that Mr. Thornberry, his help is needed, and he should be paid for his time. But we have a system in place for this. We've used very recently in the past of paying him on an hourly contract basis for his assistance. It does seem like that option is not on the table at this point. But I do have some concerns that, whatever we do agree to, the point of the hourly contract is that, on-call basis contract work isn't eligible for benefits under our personnel policy, as Vice Mayor Dalton said. And so that is a way that we, have established to pay people when we need their help after they decide that they no longer want to work for the city or decide to retire or anything like that. So I have some frustration that we're like I said, reinventing the wheel here. If this agreement is the only way forward with Mr. Thornberry and the board, well, I don't want to jump the gun here and preempt any other commissioners' discussion. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about or ask Mr.
I do, but I'm going to let Mr. The council.
Yeah. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm Sam Elliott, and I represent Mr. Thornberry, and I appreciate what the Vice Mayor had to say, but I think you're being overly technical. Understand that the departure point here is what Mr. Litchford said, is that you have a contractual obligation that was entered into with Mr. Thornberry in 2018 in order to induce him to take a job that is fraught with peril in today's world. It just is. I mean, the mere fact that y'all went to talk to Chris Dorsey, who used to be the city manager here, he's now at East Ridge, he used to be at Signal Mountain too. I represent Cy Daisy. They've lost their city manager in the last 6 months. I represent Collegedale. They've lost their city manager in the last 2 months. And so understanding that, and Mr. Thornberry has been a loyal employee of this city for 35 years. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Mr. Elliott. Are you saying that Vice Mayor Dalton and I's meeting with Chris Dorsey was perceived as a threat to Mr. Thornberry's job?
Not in the least, ma'am.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that it's a job in general that is fraught with peril. City managers don't last long in their jobs. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not pointing fingers in one way or another. Just understanding, and Mr. Thornberry knew that. He had been the Public Works Director. He understood that he was being asked to step into a job where if there's an election, which has happened, there could be some changes. And city managers don't last long as a result of that. There's always changes on that. So he asked for, and the city commission at that time lawfully entered into a contract with him to give him an exit should that time come. And that's persisted here for this time. There's been an election. There's obviously some philosophical differences between Mr. Thornberry and some of you. And so he has proposed something that may be something that Commissioner Phillips said, that it's important for y'all to have a team approach. Maybe you can find somebody that all 5 of you would agree on. And so going back to where I think you're being overly technical, there's a contract, and that contract imposes an obligation. And so what Mr. Thornberry is suggesting to you is you can liquidate that obligation by changing the contract. And you have the power to create positions, and you have the power to go around the personnel policy because it's your policy. So under that circumstance, this is not a situation where we need to say, well, we can't fit him into this job or we can't fit him into that job. It's a situation where you can, remove the obligation of this contract and receive services where he's going to be needed. And so, don't lose sight of that. That's the important thing. And yes, ma'am.
Are you suggesting that the personnel policy does not apply to him?
I'm suggesting that you can say whatever you want to about it, and you're liquidating. It's adjusting a contractual obligation that the city has.
Correct, but he is, as the city manager, still...
He currently is, yes, ma'am.
Yes, he is still currently...
Yes, ma'am.
So he is still beholden to the personnel policy.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not denying that at all. I'm saying, though, that if you enter into this agreement that's been proposed and what Mr. Litchford's written up, then you have the power to do that, and you can't. The personnel policy shouldn't affect that one way or another. You're simply affecting a change to an existing contract.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you.
Can I ask, what is the purpose of adopting a personnel policy if the board would not plan to adhere to it in all cases?
That's a consideration for you, ma'am. But you are the board, and a policy is a policy set by the board.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
With regard to what you were just saying, that we do have the power. I do believe Mr. Litchford discussed that with me, that if we wanted to make a section of the personnel policy not apply to Mr. Thornberry, that we could make an amendment. Is that correct, Mr. Litchford?
This body can vote however it wants. If there's not been a motion yet on anything,
Right.
and so there wouldn't be an amendment to anything at this point.
I'm asking in this context, that was what I understood you and I to be discussing.
Yeah, the question was, as I understood it, you said, once this is up on the floor for discussion, what if there's a desire to amend it? Are we amending it there, or is it something we amend and then we later go back to Mr. Thornberry to see if he agrees? They're here. I think we'll be able to have that dialogue here. Right now, I think that the consideration that you've got, it's got on call in here. When I talked to Mr. Alexander to ask him about that specific provision on call, his words to me were, there's enough in here he's going to be covering the time. Now, I'm looking up the term on call is listed 8 times in the personnel policy. I don't find anything in here that says on call is not a full-time employee. Fair Labor Standard Act recognizes on-call employees that they are considered to be working. It depends on if they're on the premises or if they're doing functions or if they're at home. As I understand it, and I asked Mr. Alexander this question, what would be entailed with respect to these? And the response is he's going to be in the field most of these days or meeting with contractors, engineers, architects. Now, I'm taking what I understood from the person that would be directing Mr. Thornberry at this point. The job description that was approved that I got this afternoon provides that it's on call. As a city manager, they're entitled to make a job description. And that has occurred. My understanding that from Mr. Thornberry and working with Mr. Alexander will answer to this council, but also be assisting Mr. Alexander. And so the idea that on-call is not considered 40, I can't agree with, only because it's not stated anywhere in the policy that it's not. Now,
If I may, do you punch a clock?
No.
All right. So,
And-
are you salaried employee?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's it.
I mean,
Really, that boils it down to it right there. Are you're not exempt from the salaried employee exemption and all that stuff, get overtime, or any of those other things that are in our employment agreement. So this is, as he says, this is a contract. It's a contract. This is no more than me signing up for garbage service. I'm sorry to say it like that, but that's what this is. This is not anything other than that. Sorry.
sure. I discussed with members of this body about the term on-call. I think it is up to an interpretation that anyone can have. I could not sit here and say whether or not it is 40 hours a week or not. But as I asked each of everyone here, I asked that very question. Does anyone clock in and clock out? Is that a policy here? I've read the policy that talks about having to get in there, what is it, their time sheets? But I don't know if that practice has been occurring. But to be considered on call, FLSA recognizes that if you're on call, it's the same with the physician. That if you're on call, you are subject to the city manager at any time. Whether or not he's actually doing actual job duties at that time while on call is not really the determining factor. So that's why, in talking to Mr. Elliott and seeing what Mr. Thornberry's proposal is, this is the conundrum that you have, is you have this contract that has a 12-month policy for payment. And it doesn't mean he's even terminated. This body can make an unofficial suggestion as a majority that he can or he should resign. If that were to occur, he resigns with 12 months pay and you don't get anything in return. As we have tried to craft this, we are modifying the agreement to try to carve out a position that would be recognized in the city manual as an official position. It will be in accordance with what I understand other practices to be, which is there is no time clock. There's not a standard set, and this is a job that I understand, at least from what I've discussed with many members of the administration or the commission, as well as I contacted other cities to ask about what a building inspector entails. The overwhelming response, they were not going to be in the office, they're going to be in the field. And so with that, I was satisfied that the term on call complies with the city policy, particularly since nothing in the city policy states that an on-call employee is not considered a 40-hour employee. The only ones that is listed in there is, I believe it was temporary, seasonal, and part-time. So with that, I am comfortable. Now, if this body wants to change it, going back to your question, you can try to move to amend it. There's not been a motion at all yet, but if there's a motion, then there can be to approve it as it's stated. Then, at that point, you can raise the motion to want to modify the contract to address some of the language. It will take a majority vote, but we'll go through that procedure.
I would argue that, well, thank you for your input regarding the term on-call. I would argue that if this is to be assumed to be a full-time position, or to constitute full-time work, then there would be no reason not to clarify that in the contract. I did request a copy of the existing job description from 2017 for building inspector. And one of the specifications in that job description under special requirements says, shall devote full time to the duties of his office, which I notice is notably absent in the new job description for the commercial building inspector. So that would be an easy enough addition to make to the job description, just for the sake of clarity and for the sake of being able to demonstrate for our personnel policy that Mr. Thornberry will be eligible for the benefits that he wishes to continue.
I would like to clarify, the position description you're looking at is not for commercial building inspector, it's for the property maintenance inspector. Commercial building inspector has to have all of his residential certifications along with his building code certification. So what you're looking at and what Tracy sent you is not the building official position description. That position description was written by me when we started our property maintenance inspectors, which we have 2 of them.
Thank you. If I may.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
If I may, yeah. So, we got 4 choices in front of us. 2 of them are off the table, so we really need to fire him or make a motion to accept this agreement. And really, I mean, it just seems like we're arguing over, we're not seeing the forest for the trees here. we got a man that's gonna sit over here and he's gonna get these 9 capital projects through here, which are not to be lightened, and I think this is a good deal for us. Now, I understand that it might not everybody agree to that, but I say I put a motion forward that we accept this agreement, and if that fails, I got another one. But it's not the best for the city. This is the best deal for the city, so I make a motion to accept the amended employment agreement set forth by counsels of Mr. Sam Elliott and written by our legal counsel, which is kind of like that's your job, right? So you keep us out of hot water, and this is agreeable to this gentleman. We're amending the contract. This is shooting fish in a barrel. So I don't know if you're gonna get all that on the motion there, Tracy, but all right, you might want to shorten that a bit.
Thank goodness for the recording.
Yeah.
Makes sense. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Phillips to approve the agreement as written. We have a second from Commissioner LeCompte. All right, discussion.
On these projects that Tim's gonna stay and do, some of these projects have been in the works for years, and it's a lot of grant money, and if they're not handled properly, we're gonna lose a whole lot more than what we're paying him in grant funding. One's a low water bridge replacement, ADA sidewalk upgrades, resurfacing of Browntown Road to Gad Road, new signalization, resurfacing Dayton Boulevard to Greenleaf to Browntown. There's like 9, plus Tim works with the WWTA board, and that's major. We've got to have somebody that stays on top of that so that we can get the moratorium lifted on the middle school property so that it can be developed at some point in time. I think that we're going to get our money's worth. I think we'd be foolish not to use Tim and his expertise and keep the city moving forward. I think that if we don't do this, that we're going to be at a standstill, and we could lose a whole lot more money than $110,000.
I do have some concerns, which I have brought up previously at a meeting, I believe April the 20th, or April the 6th, I don't recall, regarding TCA Code 13-4-104, which relates to any and all projects having any kind of, that changes any public property, roadway, right-of-way, etc., in any way, or potentially might, is required to go before the Planning Commission. We did discuss this. Mr. Stoltz was there providing legal counsel and clarification, and we determined that the city had not been properly following that law, that state law, for some time now. I don't know if we used to and that changed. However, none of the projects that are listed on this list went before the Planning Commission. Therefore, any of the projects not currently in process, I feel very strongly need to go back before the Planning Commission to review to make sure that it matches up with our long-range plan, which is the point of the TCA code, which is a state law that guides that process. So that if a project goes through and then there's an issue with it and a citizen decides they, said, you didn't do this properly, I'm going to sue you now, there's a potential liability there because this didn't go before the Planning Commission, which is required by state law. So I have very real concerns about some of the projects listed there for that reason. And not to say that the ones that are in process already begun shouldn't continue to go forward. And I can't say for sure how much time would be required to spend on those by Mr. Thornberry. But with regard to time spent on commercial building inspections, we got information from Mr. Thornberry that for the past year, aside from electrical, I believe, he completed 95 commercial inspections, which is approximately 1 to 2 per week. And I did some research, and that number of inspections would maybe approximately require something like 4 hours of work, which is not close to 40 hours of work per week. Again, this is just that part of it. Not to say in combination there might be enough hours that Mr. Thornberry would be working to constitute full-time. However, I have a real issue with that being the position that he has created for himself when we have never previously been able to justify that being a staff position because we don't have enough building inspections at this point in time to warrant that. And that's it.
Okay, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
You know, as we all need to work together, the first step in these projects is the city manager comes before the board and gets approval that the board wants to apply for these certain type of projects. We did that. By resolution, the commission approved for me to move forward with these projects, okay? Currently, on the Planning Commission agenda is the 3 new projects today that they probably discussed during a work session. 2 of them I don't believe that TCA requires when they're as simple as a resurfacing project. They're not widening, narrowing, or any part of the road or any of that. But I went ahead and sent all 3 because of the concerns that some of the board thought they needed to. Couldn't hurt. I'll be glad to hear what they think about them, but they all are 3 in front of the Planning Commission for this coming Thursday's meeting for their recommendation to the board. But my point is, we have to start somewhere, and starting with the Planning Commission about them, I have to get your approval first that you want to look at them. So we're at that step now. They're looking at them. It'll come back to y'all. Y'all tell me if you want me to hire a consultant to move forward with the projects.
Can you describe which 3 those were that were sent before the Planning Commission?
They are the ADA upgrades,
Okay.
which is not widening, narrowing, it's just fixing curb ramps. The paving of Dayton Boulevard from Browntown Road to Gadd Road, and the low water bridge, which should go to the Planning Commission because it's widening that bridge from a 1-lane to a 2-lane.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was at the Planning Commission work session today, and they did bring up those topics, and I do expect them to be there on Thursday. I do think we have maybe 7 total projects, but my understanding from Ashley was that she brought those 3 forward, or perhaps you did, Tim, because there are the next up on the docket, so to speak, and the other 4 will be coming through also as they become relevant to do so?
Yeah, anything that when I speak to legal counsel and they see it the way I do, if they're not widening or narrowing, then they don't have to go there. So we'll be looking at those in the future.
Okay.
So our options are either accept Tim's agreement, we'll have a planning or codes enforcement officer and and help with our interim city manager, or we fire him and we don't.
Well, it's not quite that binary. It is.
I think, ask our counselor here.
Well,
He said because he's not going to resign
Well, Commissioner Phillips, I'll just say, it's not, the answers are, as you say, to reach an agreement, or otherwise, like you said, the only other option remaining on the table would be the termination. But
We've got a motion on the floor in a second to accept the amended employment agreement.
Point of order, you interrupted Mayor Berry, and we are having discussion about that motion.
yes. So it's not this agreement that the motion is on at the moment, or nothing. This agreement is currently a living document. It has not been voted on yet. Therefore, I make a motion to amend the employment amendment to read that all benefit, any place where it says March 31st, 2022, I make a motion to amend the agreement to say that it shall end November 6, 2021. As well as to add the language, well, I guess the job description is not part of the agreement that's being motioned on, is that correct?
That's correct. This body, the job description is something that the city manager has full control over, and that's part of his administrative duties. I will say that as part of reviewing the job description that was presented to me today, I did ask for what the Public Works Director position, job duties, was, just because I understand Mr. Thornberry holds that position as well. Nothing in that job description stated full-time work, and that, I understand what that was handed to me tonight, or that I've just been handed, it says the full-time. My point is, I don't see every employment job description has that specific language of full-time, has a 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, whatever. But the job description is up for the city manager. That's what they're entitled to do, and that's what's occurred here.
Okay.
With respect to your amendment here, I have written down that all matters that would be listed under
March.
anything that says March
31st,
31st would be
2022.
amended to reflect an end date of November 6, 2021, is what I have.
Correct. That is my motion.
All right.
My reasoning being that if this agreement should be reached, the next step would be for us to continue our process with MTAS for the search for a new city manager, which they have indicated to us already that should not take longer than 3 months. I anticipate that we would be greatly in need of Mr. Thornberry's services throughout the time that our interim is in charge, should we vote again to appoint Mr. Alexander. And as you have spoken to Mr. Alexander, he has indicated his extreme desire to continue having Mr. Thornberry's help. And I also agree that our new city manager, whoever that may be, will also likely be desirous of Mr. Thornberry's assistance. But I don't know that that time period would necessarily need to extend so far as to March of next year. And of course, if this amendment were to be accepted, if it were determined after that time that Mr. Thornberry's continued assistance was necessary, then it could be amended again in a future meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Litchford?
This can be amended, you're talking about
If this were to be adopted by a vote, it could be amended again in the future.
only subject to Mr. Thornberry.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Mr. Thornberry approved.
Yeah,
This
the
body
amendment- the
cannot
amendment would
use-
have to be agreed to by Mr. Thornberry, and I'll
Correct.
tell you initially that it won't be, so.
It could not be unilaterally modified by this body. It would have to go through an approval by Mr. Thornberry and his representatives.
Okay, so definitively, that amendment would not be accepted by your party.
That's my understanding, Mayor. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
I would like to say, in light of conversation that we just had earlier tonight, that the creation of a specialized, brand-new job position with the city is equivalent to spot zoning. If we agree to this amendment, I am very concerned that this will set a dangerous precedent for future city managers who all develop employment agreements, from my understanding, with the respective city administration. And if this were to pass, future city managers could use this to establish cause to do the same thing to our city in the future. And as we all discussed earlier, we are all very strongly opposed to spot zoning. I have said, and will continue to say, that we do need Mr. Thornberry's continued assistance and service throughout the process of him leaving his position as city manager and director of public works, now according to this agreement we got, or amended agreement we got yesterday. And as I said before, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but as I've said at the previous meeting, I believe, as custom has previously dictated, a contracted hourly rate would be more appropriate. However, as I stated earlier, I am amenable to these terms if he were to step back into a role that he is still currently holding, instead of creating a new specialized position that, to be quite honest, despite, what our legal counsel is saying, I am taking to be ambiguous. And to protect our city and our city citizens' tax dollars, and to make sure that we are making responsible decisions with their money and how we are leading our city, I do not feel that this agreement will help our city going forward with future city managers.
Can I address that,
Sure.
Mayor?
Please.
You don't know, Will.
Yeah, well, you're free to, too. Having the experience that I've had with cities for many, many years now, not as much as Mr. Stoltz, but a considerable amount, city managers talk. And you had a solemn agreement with this man that he is proposing a way for the city to address it in a way that is mutually beneficial. And so when you say that changing this agreement puts it in a situation where it ruins Red Bank down the road with other city managers, it's the other way around.
That's not right.
Well, I'm paraphrasing, and I apologize. But
Order in the room, please.
the point is that, the fact that you're straining at gnats over something where this man took the job 2.5 years ago in order to help the city out, and the city gave him an agreement, I'm sorry, but I fail to see the logic. Really, what you're arguing is the exact opposite is what's going to happen. If Red Bank is not seen to honor its agreements, and this is a way for Red Bank to honor its agreement in a mutually beneficial fashion, then your future applicants for city manager are going to have trouble. You're going to be having trouble finding somebody who's qualified. Respectfully, I'll say that, ma'am.
How are we not honoring the agreement?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that you're not right now, but what you're suggesting is that, well, we're creating this and we're doing that. No, you have an agreement, and he can stay in his job, and y'all can continue to have pushing and pulling and all that sort of thing. What he's trying to do is identify a way for all 5 of you to have somebody who's your candidate, and yet honor his time at Red Bank and honor the commitment that was made 2.5 years ago. That's all I've got to say. Yes, sir.
If I may paraphrase.
Yes, sir.
He wants to do the job, he just doesn't want to have to deal with us.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's basically what we're talking about here. He still wants to do the job, he just doesn't want to have to answer to us right now. And it's kind of one of those things of, and I think he's come up with a fair agreement here. Is it perfect? Probably not. Do we ever have perfect? No. So, I mean, it's one of those things that's on the table. He's agreed to it. Our attorneys agreed to it. His attorneys agreed to it. And I don't want to choke on a gnat here.
Well, it can't be perfect, but we can make incremental improvements.
No, because these 2 attorneys right here are the ones that make the incremental improvements. So if we want to delay this again and go in here and get them back into negotiation, then everything's going to fall apart. And I don't think it's going to be. I mean, it's not like this is on the table now.
In a negotiation, there's always an opportunity to negotiate. And the other party is always welcome to say no. But that doesn't mean that the first party doesn't have the right to ask. Given Vice Mayor Dalton's comments, I motion to amend the agreement to read, number 1, Thornberry's obligations and duties as city manager for the city shall cease effective close of business May 18th, 2021. Thornberry will continue to serve as Director of Public Works. For the purposes of clarification regarding Thornberry's employment and duties as the Director of Public Works, Thornberry will perform the duties as described in the Public Works job description. Mr. Elliott, your client's response?
My client's shaking his head in the negative, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. I withdraw my motion. Is there any further discussion on the item on the floor? Okay. Any comments from the citizens present? If you would like to speak, please come forward, and I would ask that you remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Address all of your comments to the commission, and please give your name and your full address.
I'm David Halfley. I live at 4621 Hunter Trail. I've been a citizen of Red Bank for an extended period of time, and I think it's a shame that you're losing Tim Thornberry as your city manager. I think he's done an excellent job, and I think that you would be well served to accept his agreement to leave on amiable terms.
Thank you, Mr. Halfley. So would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Julie Goss. I live at 3713 Oweta Terrace. I've lived there for over 20 years. I think this is a good example of politicians, and they think that the rules, they want to make the rules for them. I mean, I think this is an example of the way normal people, they abide by the rules, they have personnel handbooks, they follow them. We've all worked in the workforce where people go, this is the handbook, you abide by it. You don't amend the handbook for just anybody. This is how it is. You don't just go, oh, well, you can just make the rules up and just do it your own self. No, that's not how things work. We've been in the workforce, we know how it works, but the politicians are like, you can do whatever you want, you can spot zone. If you want Airbnb in your neighborhood, by all means, let's make a special exception for you. No, it doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous. I've lived here for over 20 years. I don't know any of you people, but these two came to my house. They asked me, you know, what I felt about living in Red Bank. I know them. I'm feel happy that they're in charge here. I've got a written statement. You know, I mean, I support them. I'm disappointed in the fact that Mr. Thornberry was not willing to work for a fair daily rate. I don't think that was unreasonable. We're not asking him to work for nothing. We're not asking him to work for free. Y'all make it sound like we're asking him to work for free. We're not. We're asking him to work for a fair daily consultant rate. I don't think that's unreasonable. Most consultants do work for a fair daily rate, and that would ensure that our new city manager and our interim city manager would have all the support, insight, and training that they would need to hit the ground running. The standard daily rate option would save taxpayers a great deal of money. I'm upset that Mr. Thornberry resigned his position without giving 30 days notice as he specified in his hiring agreement. From the outside, this looks like his resignation as he's reacting unprofessionally to possible disagreements and differing viewpoints within the new administration, not a high-level executive dedicated to the best outcomes of our city. I agree with Vice Mayor Dalton. This is setting a really, really bad example and for future presidents, for future city managers. They're going to do the same thing, and they're going to squeeze us to get the best payout they can get. Regardless of tonight's vote and my feelings towards it, my hope is that the city employees and the government officials will rally around the new city manager, use their extensive experience and expertise to ensure that this transition is successful and on track to keep Red Bank growing and thriving in new and exciting ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goss. Would anyone else like to speak?
Kathy Lennon, 401 Crispin Street. This whole situation would not even have arisen if there wasn't an election. Elections happen, things change. That's just the way that it is. Employees resign. That happens. Sometimes they resign for reasons that are beyond your control and out of their immediate control too. The reasons why an employee might leave are endless. and endlessly challenging to you as an employer. Whatever the reasons why employees resign, there are recommended procedures for employers to follow to handle an employee resignation with dignity, professionalism, and grace. So it is very important to have policy in place with HR, which doesn't seem to really be happening. It doesn't seem like people want to follow that. There needs to be an exit interview, employment ending checklist. It is common knowledge that Mr. Thornberry is a beloved member of this community. Nobody has ever said anything other than that. We know that. We applaud it. He's done an outstanding job as our city manager. It was his decision to resign as city manager. His decision, nobody else's. He's a fully grown man. After Holly Berry, Stephanie Dalton, and Pete Phillips were elected to the commission, that's when he made the decision. Bingo, you said it. He doesn't want to work for y'all anymore. Some speculated the reason for Mr. Thornberry's resignation was the new leadership. Yes, it is. He doesn't like it. It happens. That's what happens when elections take place. However, it's not acceptable for people to blame Mr. Thornberry's resignation on certain people, which has been done. He is a fully grown man. If he has issues with one of the newly elected officials, it is his responsibility to talk to that person and see if a resolution can be made. Did this happen? Did he ask if a resolution could be made?
Not to my knowledge in advance of his resignation.
All right.
I've got a timer going, thank you.
How do you know that there's a problem unless you take it to somebody? You don't. As an educator for over 25 years, as a person who revitalized, is it 33 minutes?
Almost, yeah. Almost.
It is?
Yes.
You're not compromising. You talk about compromise, but you're not compromising with anybody else. Sir, I hate to say this, but you keep shaking your head no every time they say something. Everybody has to compromise here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lennon. Are there any other citizens present who would like to comment?
A very brief statement. My name's Cynthia Heron. I live at 409 Marlowe Drive. My family has been in Red Bank since 1952. So
That's before it was Red Bank, isn't it?
No, it was Red Bank, thanks.
I thought it was incorporated in 55.
I'd like for you to think about since November when the changes were made, and I'm not singling anybody out. But I do want you to think about the fact that someone with 33 years of experience, Ruthie Rowan, resigned. Now Tim and Mark Matthews, who has 45 years of experience. So I want you to think about that and how that reflects on your performance since the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heron. It is my understanding that Ruthie Rowan and Mark Matthews both retired and have been eligible for retirement for many years.
Yes, they have.
Yes.
And yes, you did visit the departments because my husband was at the meeting. And things were said.
All right. Is there any more citizens who would like to comment? Okay. Oh, sir, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Chris Wood. I'm one of the owners of Be Caffeinated, 3601 Dayton Boulevard. I sling coffee, that's my job. I'm not a politician or anything. I can't face them, but some of these guys know me as the guy that took over the old Central Park building. It's really fun to be there. Red Bank has opened its arms really wide to us. We really enjoy being there. So as a business owner, I make $10 an hour right now. But that's not a lot. I did some rough math on my calculator and had $100,000 a year, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. That's $50 an hour, not including benefits. And it just kind of, it's a little frustrating to be working 50 to 80 hours a week and making, if you add up the total, about $5 an hour, and then to be considered to be on call and not have to have a timesheet to be making $50 an hour if they were working 40 hours a week. And that's not including the other job that would be created. That's not including the fact that he wasn't fired, he voluntarily resigned. So like this whole situation wasn't prompted by anyone other than himself. And that's, I mean, the fact of the matter is, he makes a lot of money. I would love to make that kind of money. If y'all want a new city manager, let me know. But there's a lot of people out here. I don't think any of these guys probably make that much, and if they do, that's awesome. But I just think he served the city well, and it would be really unfortunate to end his career in Red Bank on a sour note when he obviously cares about the city. And I do want to ask a question. Is he eligible for retirement? Am I allowed to ask that?
My understanding is that Mr. Thornberry has served the city for 35 years and so has been eligible for retirement now for 5 years.
So-
Is that, I'm sorry, Mr. Elliott, is that correct?
That would be something Mr.
Okay.
Thornberry has to answer.
Mr. Thornberry, are you eligible for retirement, correct?
I am.
Yes.
So my question is, since the government's already paying retirement, why should the government also pay his salary when it was a resignation in the first place? So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. All right, any more citizens who'd like to comment?
Okay, my name is Ann Wheeler, 427 Antelope Trail. I have, first of all, a statement. Mr. Thornberry probably has retirement from this government, but not the government. He's not old enough. Take my word for it. Because if he is, they owe me something. My thing is, this whole thing has been drawn out, and actually, I think there are a lot of theatrics here. I think there are definite issues, but I think there should be a resolution. As I understood, I believe it was Mr. Phillips, don't ask me what meeting, but in one of the meetings said that Mr. Thornberry and any city manager only answers to you. And I think it was Mr. Phillips that said any discrepancy in agreements or anything else are only between you and he. He then handles all other job descriptions, etc., for the city.
He's the CEO.
Correct. Okay. So, can we, at any point in the near future, come to an agreement up there to be respectful of his time, his effort that he's spent with the city? And I agree, it's kind of like we're almost shooting fish in a barrel. I love your terminology, because we have things that need to be done in this city and need to be taken care of in an efficient manner. And I can tell you from managing an office, you can't bring somebody new in and expect them to know what's going on. You can train them till your eyes are crossed, and they still do not replace experience. And I think he's worth whatever money he is asking, because I think you figured the dollars out. It's close, because I had to. But it's something that we need to see, and I think we as citizens need to see some resolution, because this has gone on entirely too long.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Wheeler.
you.
We do have a motion on the floor to vote, hopefully to resolve this one way or the other at the moment. All right, any other citizens would like to speak?
Jamie Harvey, 2409 Ashmore Avenue. I thank Mr. Litchford for his input. That's why he's here. So his guidance and expertise is honorable
And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any other citizens would like to speak on this matter?
Tyler Craig, 2711 Berkeley Drive. So it's clear you guys want to get this guy paid, and he deserves to be paid. Nobody's besmirching your character. You've done a pretty good job and deserves to be paid for the work that he has done and will continue to do, probably. But we keep throwing this term around, fish in the barrel. Pete, fish in the barrel, fish in the barrel. So I guess the comment I want to make is on the 26th, it seemed like it was fish in the barrel. Everybody was pushing to get him paid and pushing him to get that check so he can continue to do the work the city wants to do, but we screwed it up pretty bad, and it's almost been a month, and we're still here working on this resolution. It's fish in the barrel again. It's fish in the barrel, and I still can't understand why an hourly wage is not even like a point of discussion. You guys want to get him paid, but you're not even willing to compromise. And not the last meeting here, but the one prior to that, we turned down an ordinance to hire a particular lawyer because there wasn't a choice included in that, and that was not coming from, the people are drawing the line in the sand here. That was coming from you, Pete, and that was a good comment. That was coming from you, Ed. No, it was you. Yeah, you showed up, and you wanted to make sure that you had a choice, and you didn't want it crammed down your throat, which I completely and totally agree with. On the 26th, and in this particular instance as well, it seems like there's a monetary agreement that's being crammed down our throats, and it would be nice to see a legitimate discussion in which people actually share their views and compromise and work like a democratic political body. Yeah,
His attorney.
I get it, but that's not showing.
And then we come up with the.
That's not showing from what you guys are putting out. The amount of disrespect that you have lodged today, Ruth, is mind-boggling. These ladies have corrected false accusations that you have made against them, and you laughed, and the people that you brought here have also laughed and made comments. They clapped and stood up and interrupted citizens that were trying to speak on their own behalf. And it's incredible that you have been on this board so long, but still have such disdain for all of these people up here, and the city of Red Bank as well. You talk a lot about all this great stuff you do, and you've got these people behind me who started yelling at me when I tried to point out that I have never met you and never seen you, but I am in Red Bank and I am working in the schools. They shouted me down, and I had to sit down because I lost my cool and also started shouting back at them. Where's the compromise? Where's the job that you're supposed to be doing?
I'm doing my job.
You can try harder.
All right. Do we have any other citizens who would like to speak? Okay. If there are no more citizen comments, does anyone wish to call a vote on Commissioner Phillips' motion?
Let's review it again.
Okay.
We've been here for quite a while.
Sure. Would you like to?
No, you're in charge. You do it.
No, I make a motion saying, I'll call a vote. Can I call a vote on my motion?
Let's review the motion, is what I'm asking.
Okay. Well, the motion that I have on the floor was to accept the amendment to the employment agreement agreed to by Mr. Sam Elliott and Mr. Mark Litchford for the city manager.
Right.
It took me a while, but I got it all out.
Okay. And I think Ed seconded.
I seconded it.
Yep. Do we roll call it, or just?
Is this a roll? I believe this is a standard vote as it's an agenda item and not an ordinance. Mr. Litchford?
It's agenda.
Yes? Okay. In that case, does anyone wish to call a vote?
No, I did. We reviewed the.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Am I
Are
mistaken?
you satisfied for a vote, Commissioner Janelle? All right. In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries. Okay. So, next we have item number 2, consideration of the minutes for the special called meeting on April 26, 2021 for approval or correction. Does anyone have any corrections to make to the April 26 minutes? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner LaCombe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second from Commissioner Jeanneau? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Number 3, MTAS, recruitment and hiring process for a new city manager. On April 26th, Ms. Hannah Rogers of the Municipal Technical Advisory Service gave a presentation on the options MTAS offers to help in the screening, selection, and hiring process for a new city manager at no cost to the city. At that time, all members of the board indicated an intent to utilize the services that MTAS offers. Since that time, I believe each board member, although actually we discussed this during any other business, were you able to reply to Hannah about the job description, Commissioner Jeanneau? Okay, and you were as well, Commissioner. Okay, so in that case, all 5 board members have replied to Hannah's job description. And let's see, so if that's the case, do we have a verbal consensus to continue with MTAS assistance in the job search?
I think it's already been
Advertised? Is that?
I think it was a little bit jumping the gun before we okayed this. Don't know how that happened.
And I'm just gonna ask, is we had the vote on the first one, should we have the vote on the second one?
MTAS did not, says they do not require a vote, but merely a verbal agreement. If for the
I'm
purposes
good
of
with that.
clarification, if the board wishes to vote, we could, but it's not required.
Okay, well, as long as it's not required, I'm good.
Okay.
You got any problem? I'm good.
All right. And I saw Tracy nodding, so it sounds like that job description has been published. Okay. So thank you very much, Tracy. All right, so number 4, selection, appointment, and compensation for interim city manager. In the April 26th meeting, we had discussed the appointment of our finance director, John Alexander, who has been with the city for 10 years, I believe, and has served as interim in the past for 13 months. Any discussion on that topic?
I think he's the best man for the job.
All right. Well, if everyone's in agreement, I'll make a motion to appoint John Alexander as interim city manager. Any discussion?
I'll second.
Oh, we have a second from Commissioner Jeanneau. All right. Any citizen comments? All right. If there are no citizen comments and no further discussion, we can go ahead and call a vote. This is also under agenda items, so we can still do a standard vote, to my understanding. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We also had the compensation for the interim city manager as part of the discussion. Any discussion on that?
I think what we did before was we took the difference in his city employment salary for finance director and the city manager and just compensated him the difference in that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much that is. I think his is about 78,000 or so up to that. They can figure out the math on that one.
Okay.
I think that'd be fair.
Sure. Would anyone like to make a motion to that regard?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Jeanneau to raise John Alexander's salary as interim city manager from his existing salary to the current salary of the current city manager for the duration of the time he is interim.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a second from Commissioner LaCombe. Any discussion? All right. My understanding is this is how it ended up being handled last time John Alexander was interim. And again, we should hope that with the utilization of MTAS for the job search, that this should not, the pay increase should not have to endure longer than just a few months during the job search to cover his additional tasks. Any citizen comments before we call the vote? All right. If there's no citizen comments and no more discussion, let's go ahead and call the vote. Let me go back. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So we have I think that concludes our agenda items for the April 26th meeting. So next we have ordinance 21-1189, an ordinance of the City of Red Bank, Tennessee, to amend the fiscal year 2021 operating budget beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, in order to appropriate unbudgeted expenditures and grant funding. And this is our second and final reading, as we did vote on it in the last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Seconding.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner LeCompte and a second by Commissioner Phillips. Any discussion?
This is just a house cleaning item, right?
Yeah, housekeeping to account for some emergency projects and some unanticipated grant funding. Is that correct, Mr. Thornberry?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any citizen comments? All right. If there is no more discussion, let's go ahead and call a vote. This will be a roll call vote as it is an ordinance. Mr. Thornberry, if you could call the roll for us.
Mayor Berry.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dalton.
Yes.
Commissioner Janot.
Yes.
Commissioner LeCompte.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. And next we move on to I believe our final item of business. Bear with me while I flip through all my notes here. Yeah, we got it up. Thank you. Ordinance number 21-1190, an ordinance of the City of Red Bank, Tennessee, amending the zoning ordinance and maps of this city to rezone property located at 336 Sweetland Drive from R1 residential to R3 residential pursuant to certain restrictions. First reading. Now, we did have our public hearing for this item earlier in the evening, and some discussion. Is there any further discussion by the board? And do I have a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny from Commissioner LeCompte. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Phillips. All right. Any discussion? Again, the recommendation that came from the Planning Commission, unfortunately, was to not approve. Again, citing concerns about spot zoning, as well as, again, the size of the lot and screening requirements. I believe Commissioner Phillips had a map, or I'm sorry, LeCompte. Commissioner LeCompte had a map that made it pretty clear to indicate that this would be an island of R3 and a sea of R1, which is something we're trying to move away from as a city. I regret, for the sake of the applicant, that there is not a non-zoning solution available for short-term rentals, especially for occupants, primary occupants of housing in our city. All right, if there are no further comments, let's go ahead. Mr. Thornberry, could you call the roll?
Any questions?
Oh, we had the public hearing already, so I think we covered anybody who's interested in commenting on this particular topic.
Mayor Berry.
I'm sorry, your motion was to deny.
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dalton.
Yes.
Commissioner Janot.
Yes.
Commissioner LeCompte.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, now is the time for citizen comments for items not on the agenda. So if any citizens present have anything they wish to bring before the board that is not regarding any of the topics we've discussed on the agenda today, please feel free to come forward, give your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, come on up.
It's me again. It's Margaret.
This is fun time.
Jamie Harvey, 2409 Ashmore Avenue. Thank you for the pedestrian signs all up, down Thack Boulevard. I'm respectfully requesting that maybe at the end of the agenda where it says citizens' comments, because I got called out a couple of weeks ago, if there was any way, depending on the type of meeting that it is, that you write maybe on the agenda citizens' concerns to address what's on the agenda.
Yes.
Citizens' comments that are not on the agenda, so I can know how to address and not get called out.
That
was a little embarrassing.
Oh, I'm very sorry to have
That's
to call
okay.
you out
I
like
want to
that,
play by the
Miss Harvey.
rules. I'm a teacher also, like Miss Lennon, so to know ahead.
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Well, it's just, thank you. The last one is, and I was walking in the neighborhood, I'll be fast about this in 3 minutes, kind of branching off of what Mr. Phillips said. I'm willing to meet at Red Bank Methodist on Sunday for 45 minutes in the yard for folks to come and talk. Not about him, not about y'all, but about us. And if anybody behind me would like to meet there, just to talk. How long you been in Red Bank? What do you think about Red Bank? Why do you live in Red Bank? How long you lived in Red Bank? So I'm throwing it out there for 6 to 6:45 on Sunday, May 23rd, Red Bank United Methodist Yard. And just, if it's raining, carry an umbrella. You want to stand around and talk, not to y'all, but really to them, but to let you know that it may happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Tracy, would we be able to add some clarification on the agenda for the citizen comments? Would that be possible?
I'll have to consult with legal.
Yeah, Arnie, do you have an opinion on this?
If the commission wants it, the commission can have
Okay.
it.
Does anybody here object to some clarification to the citizen comments?
So it'd be like, the ordinance right there, then it'd be us, and then like the citizen comments.
Oh, no, it would just be, when it says on the agenda that's published for the public, instead of just saying citizen comments, it'll say citizen comments for items not on the agenda.
And you say that very well at the end of the meeting, but if it were written as opposed to a special meeting or a regular meeting, just to prompt us as to how we can respond.
To know what kind of comments they can bring to the meeting.
Right, because in special call meetings, the comments can only be concerning the items that are on the agenda.
Correct, yes.
And there's not good clarification around that.
Would everyone present be amenable to that clarification?
I hope we don't have as many special meetings.
It could happen. All right. All right, any more citizen comments for items not on the agenda? Oh, please come forward.
Hi, my name's Christian Gonzalez. I live at 106 Harding Road. I'm just came here to announce I'm part of an organization called White Oak Bicycle Co-op. We're a 501(c) nonprofit. We just go out, help out people who need bikes, refurbish them, and give them out in need. I just want to announce there's a kind of like a family fun day at the White Oak Park. We partner up with the Trust for Public Land. Guys come out. It's going to be from 9 to 1 o'clock. Hope to all see you there as members of the community. Thank you.
Donations and stuff?
Yeah, we certainly take donations.
Of both money and bikes, right?
What was that again?
Of both money and bikes?
Yeah, hey, whatever we can to help out the community. Working on that. No, but you can visit our website at whiteoakbicycle.org and get a lot more information there. But thank you again, guys.
And Mr. Gonzalez, I understand that we have had some discussion about potentially working out an agreement with the city of Red Bank and your nonprofit to bring bicycles that are either collected by bulk trash collection or through the police impound.
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz, are you aware of the status of that request?
Well, basically, you'd have to declare it surplus from the impound.
Okay.
Not from trash collection. Trash collection, if somebody's willing to take it off the city's hands, then that can be done administratively.
Okay. Would we need to approve a resolution or anything like that, or would
Yeah,
we?
it would be good so that the city manager could have guidance about what to do with, as you say, trash collection.
Okay.
But police impounds have a special rule associated with them. I don't know if do we get many police impounds of bicycles?
I think when Chief Seymour answered my question about that, he said they maybe only get a few per year. But Public Works, is my understanding, they get quite a bit more.
Which would be the trash type stuff, abandoned.
Would you be able to draft a potential resolution for discussion for this partnership?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Oh, thank you.
sorry, excuse me. Hi, Chris Wood, be caffeinated, I'll be quick. First of all, this guy stuck around for 2 hours just to announce about his event on Saturday, so that's awesome. We'll be there with them with coffee, so y'all come out and drink it. So we just said it would be fine if y'all ever wanted to use us as a drop-off spot for bikes, as long as they're collected within like 24 to 48 hours. So that would be our Red Bank shop and our North Shore shop. So we can talk about that later.
Both shops.
And then, like, everyone has different opinions about what happened tonight, but we're all citizens of Red Bank. We all are neighbors. Like, let's move on and move forward, and let's just work together, because why fight? So, thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Wood. All right. Any further citizen comments? All right. If not, on that beautiful note, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Phillips.